The scent of pine needles and roasting turkey usually filled me with a childlike joy, but on Christmas Day at my mother-in-law's house, it only tightened the knot of anxiety in my stomach. Every year, it was the same silent performance. The perfectly set table, the heirloom ornaments gleaming on the tree, and the ghost of Christmas past, a woman named Chloe, hovering in every corner of Judith's pristine home. Liam, my husband of 3 years, must have sensed my unease. His hand found mine under the damask tablecloth, his thumb tracing soothing circles on my skin. He was a good man, a rock in the turbulent sea of my life, but even his quiet strength felt diminished within these walls. Here he was Judith's son first, and my husband second. "Everything all right, love?" he whispered, his warm breath a small comfort against my ear. I forced a smile, not wanting to cast a shadow on his Christmas. "Perfect. Just admiring your mother's decorations? She has a real talent." Judith, who possessed hearing as sharp as her critiques, looked up from across the table. "Talent is just another word for effort, Sophie. Some people are willing to make it, others are not." The implied criticism landed exactly where she intended, a small, sharp dart aimed at my heart. I had brought a homemade apple pie, a recipe passed down from my grandmother. It sat on the sideboard, untouched, while Judith's array of elaborate desserts took center stage. I knew it wasn't about the pie. It was about me. The early years of our marriage were a battleground of comparisons. Judith spoke of Chloe, Liam's high school sweetheart, with a reverence usually reserved for saints. Chloe, who had apparently decorated this very house for Christmas a decade ago with unmatched flair. Chloe, who had planned to go to law school, a detail Judith never failed to mention when she heard about my work as a freelance graphic designer. "Such a modern job," she'd say, her tone suggesting it was something frivolous, unstable. Liam had ended things with Chloe amicably years before we even met. They had wanted different things out of life. He wanted a family and a quiet life in our hometown, while she craved the thrill of a big city and a high-powered career. But in Judith's mind, their breakup was a tragedy, a grand love story interrupted, and I was the inadequate epilogue. This year, however, felt different, heavier. Judith's usual passive-aggressive remarks had been replaced by a saccharine sweetness that felt far more menacing. She complimented my dress, a simple velvet green one, but added, "It's a lovely color." Chloe had a dress just like it, for the winter formal. "Do you remember, Liam?" She looked like a movie star. Liam squeezed my hand tighter, a silent apology. "Mom, that was a long time ago. Can we please just enjoy the day?" A flicker of irritation crossed Judith's face before being replaced by that unnerving smile. "Oh, of course, dear, just reminiscing. The holidays are for memories, after all." And she had an arsenal of them. After the main course was cleared, as everyone was loosening their belts and sinking into a food-induced haze, Judith stood up, her eyes gleaming with a strange, triumphant light. "I was cleaning out the attic the other day," she announced to the room, though her gaze was fixed on me. "And I found the most wonderful treasure, an old photo album I thought was lost." My blood ran cold. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, what was coming. Liam's shoulders tensed beside me. His aunt, a kind woman named Mary, shot Judith a warning look, but it went ignored. "It's the one from Liam's university years," Judith continued, retrieving a heavy, leather-bound book from a drawer in her mahogany sideboard. "So many wonderful moments." She placed it on the coffee table right in the center of the small gathering of family members. Her movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial. She opened the first page, and there she was. Chloe, young, vibrant, with a cascade of blonde hair and a dazzling smile, her arms slung possessively around a much younger Liam. They were at a football game, their faces painted with team colors. "Look at them," Judith sighed, a wistful, almost mournful sound. They were the golden couple. Everyone thought so. Page after page, it was the same. Liam and Chloe on a ski trip, bundled in winter gear, their noses red from the cold. Liam and Chloe at a formal dance, him in a slightly too large tuxedo, her in a shimmering gown. Liam and Chloe on a beach, silhouetted against a sunset. For every picture, Judith had a story, a detailed narration of their perfect romance. "This was the trip they took to Italy," she said, pointing to a photo of them in front of the Colosseum. Liam was so taken with the history. And Chloe, she could already speak a little Italian. So impressive. She was always pushing him, to be more worldly. The implication hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I, who had never been to Europe, who had spent my college years working 2 jobs to make ends meet, was not worldly. I was not impressive. I felt a dozen pairs of eyes on me, a mixture of pity and discomfort. I tried to keep my expression neutral, to project an aura of unbothered grace, but I could feel a hot flush creeping up my neck. I was an intruder, a placeholder in a life that was supposed to belong to someone else. I took a slow, deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm, to not give her the satisfaction of a reaction. I loved Liam, and he loved me. That was the only truth that mattered. But as Judith turned another page, her voice dripping with nostalgia, that truth began to feel fragile, like a delicate glass ornament about to shatter on the floor. "Oh, and this one," she exclaimed, her voice reaching a crescendo. "This was at their graduation party. Liam gave the most beautiful speech about their future together. He said," I held my breath, my knuckles white from gripping the armrest of my chair. The entire room seemed to lean in, waiting for the final, crushing blow. Judith's smile was a thin, cruel line. "He said," she paused for dramatic effect, her eyes scanning the faces of her audience, "that with Chloe by his side, he felt like he had already found his forever, his exact words, my forever." Wasn't that romantic? The words hit me harder than a physical slap. It wasn't just the sentiment itself, it was the way Judith delivered it, like a prosecutor presenting irrefutable evidence of my lesser value. My forever. The phrase echoed in the silent room, a testament to a future that was never meant for me. I felt the sting of tears behind my eyes and fought them back with every ounce of my will. I would not cry. I would not give her the satisfaction. I risked a glance at Liam. His face was a mask of cold fury, his jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle twitching in his cheek. He had risen slightly from his seat, as if he meant to stand, but seemed frozen in place. He looked from his mother to me, and in his eyes I saw a maelstrom of regret, anger, and helplessness. "Mom," he said, his voice low and dangerous, a tone he rarely used. "That's enough. Put the book away. Now." Judith feigned surprise, placing a hand on her chest. "Liam, what on earth is the matter? We're just having a lovely time remembering the old days. No harm in that. Sophie doesn't mind, do you, dear?" She turned her unnervingly sweet smile on me, pinning me in place. It was a direct challenge. If I said I minded, I was insecure and jealous. If I said I didn't, I was validating her cruelty. It was a perfectly constructed trap. I tried to find my voice, but it was lost somewhere in the tightness of my throat. I could only manage a small, almost imperceptible shake of my head. My silence was my only shield. Liam's Aunt Mary, bless her heart, tried to intervene. "Judith, the coffee is getting cold, and Sophie's pie looks absolutely delicious. Why don't we cut into it? Let's put the past away for a bit." "All in good time, Mary," Judith dismissed her, not even bothering to look away from the album. She was a dog with a bone, and she wasn't done yet. She flipped another page. "Oh, look. This is the last Christmas Chloe spent with us before she moved. She gave me this beautiful cashmere scarf. I still have it. Such impeccable taste." The photo showed the whole family, younger and ostensibly happier, gathered around the tree. Chloe was standing next to Liam, her head resting on his shoulder. She fit into the frame so perfectly, so naturally, while I felt like a poorly photoshopped addition to every family picture we'd ever taken. I couldn't take it anymore. The air was too thick to breathe. The scent of pine and turkey now seemed cloying, suffocating. I needed to escape. Quietly, I pushed my chair back, intending to slip away to the powder room, to splash cold water on my face and piece my composure back together. But my movement broke Liam's paralysis. He saw the single, traitorous tear that finally escaped and traced a hot path down my cheek. He saw the defeat in my eyes, the slight tremble of my lower lip, and in that instant, something in him snapped. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue with his mother. He didn't make a scene. What he did was far more powerful. The room fell completely silent as he stood up. He walked past the coffee table, past his stunned mother, and came directly to me. The low hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the world. He didn't stop until he was standing in front of my chair. The family watched, their conversations and feigned pleasantries dead on their lips. Then, he did something I never would have expected. He slowly knelt before me, taking both of my hands in his. His touch was warm and steady. He ignored our audience, his gaze locked on mine, his blue eyes searching my face with an intensity that made my heart ache. It felt as if he were trying to pour all of his love, all of his regret for not stopping this sooner, directly into my soul through his gaze alone. He lifted my right hand, the one with the simple gold band he had placed on my finger 3 years ago. He turned it over, his thumb gently stroking the delicate skin of my wrist. I could feel the faint, steady rhythm of my own pulse against his touch. He leaned in, and the world seemed to narrow to the space between us. I could see the flecks of gold in his blue eyes, the genuine pain etched around them. He was not just my husband in that moment. He was my champion. And then, in the suffocating silence of that Christmas afternoon, with his mother's monument to his past love sitting open on the table, Liam pressed his lips to the back of my hand. It was not a fleeting, casual gesture. It was a slow, deliberate, reverent kiss. A kiss that spoke of devotion, of loyalty, of a choice made not in the past, but right now, in this very moment. It was a public declaration, a silent, unshakable vow. He was choosing me. He was showing them all. He held the kiss for a long moment, a pledge of allegiance in a territory that had long been hostile. When he finally pulled back, he didn't let go of my hand. He just kept looking at me, his eyes saying everything he hadn't been able to say out loud. You. It's you. It has always been you. The silence that followed was different. It was no longer just the absence of sound. It was heavy, thick with meaning, filled with the collective shock of the entire family. Every eye was on us. I looked over Liam's kneeling form and saw Judith. Her mouth was slightly agape, the triumphant smile wiped clean from her face, replaced by a look of utter, stunned disbelief. The photo album lay forgotten in her lap. The ghost of Christmas past had just been exorcised. Time seemed to warp and stretch in the wake of Liam's gesture. The kiss on my hand was a silent thunderclap, and the silence it left behind was absolute. In that quiet, I saw everything with a startling new clarity. I saw Judith, not as the intimidating matriarch, but as a woman clinging desperately to a past that was no longer hers to control. Her face, usually a mask of smug certainty, was now slack with shock, her skin looking papery and thin under the warm glow of the Christmas lights. The photo album, her weapon of choice, lay open but inert in her lap, its power utterly neutralized. I saw Liam's aunts and uncles, who for years had been silent accomplices to Judith's annual ritual of emotional sabotage. Their discomfort was palpable, a collective squirming as they avoided looking at either Judith or us. But on the face of Aunt Mary, I saw the ghost of a smile, a small, subtle upturn of her lips that spoke of relief and quiet satisfaction. She had seen the injustice for years, and now, finally, someone had done something about it. And then there was Liam, still kneeling before me, holding my hand as if it were the most precious thing in the world. The fury had drained from his face, replaced by a profound and unwavering tenderness. In that moment, the ghost of Chloe didn't just vanish, it was rendered completely irrelevant. She was a faded photograph in a dusty album. I was the woman whose hand my husband kissed, whose tears he was ready to go to war over. The anxiety that had been my constant companion in this house evaporated, replaced by a wave of love so powerful it felt like a physical force, warming me from the inside out. I was not a placeholder. I was home. Slowly, as if moving through water, Liam rose to his feet, pulling me up gently with him. He didn't let go of my hand. Instead, he intertwined his fingers with mine, our joined hands a clear and visible symbol of our unity. He turned to face his mother, his expression calm, resolute, and utterly final. "We're done here," he said. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the silence with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. It was not a request. It was a statement of fact. He reached down and, with his free hand, calmly closed the leather-bound album. The soft thud of the cover shutting felt like a gavel striking, ending a long and painful trial. He picked it up and held it out to Judith. She stared at it as if it were a venomous snake. "The past was what it was, Mom," Liam said, his voice softening slightly, a hint of pity creeping in. "And parts of it were beautiful. But this," he said, lifting our joined hands an inch higher, "is my present and my future. Sophie is my forever. And this tradition of yours of hurting her to make yourself feel better, it ends today. It will not happen again." Judith flinched as if he had struck her. She finally took the album, her hands trembling slightly. She had no retort, no sarcastic comment, no cleverly veiled insult. For the first time since I had met her, Judith was utterly speechless. She had pushed her son to a breaking point, and in doing so, had lost him in a way she never anticipated. He hadn't yelled or argued. He had simply drawn a line in the sand with love as his only weapon. A heavy, awkward silence descended again, but this time it was different. It wasn't tense. It was expectant. Who would be the first to move, to speak, to chart a course for what was left of this broken Christmas day. Once again, it was Aunt Mary who stepped in to save the day. She stood up, clapping her hands together with a forced but welcome cheerfulness. "Well," she announced to the room at large, "all this talk of the past is making me hungry for the present. Sophie, I have been eyeing that magnificent apple pie since you walked in the door. Is it too early for dessert?" The spell was broken. A nervous ripple of laughter went through the room. One of Liam's uncles stood up. "I'll get the plates," he offered, already moving toward the kitchen. "I'll make fresh coffee," his wife added, following him. It was a quiet, uncoordinated, but unanimous retreat from the emotional battlefield Judith had created. The family was subtly, but surely, aligning itself with us. They were choosing the pie. They were choosing me. Liam kept my hand in his as he led me toward the sideboard where my humble dessert sat. It no longer looked plain or inadequate. It looked like a promise of sweetness after a bitter meal. He picked up the knife, placed it in my hand, and then put his own hand over mine. Together, we made the first cut. As I sliced through the warm, cinnamon-scented apples and the flaky crust I had so carefully crafted, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The slice of pie I placed on a plate for Aunt Mary was more than just a dessert. It was an offering of peace and acceptance. Judith remained seated on the sofa, silent and isolated, the photo album resting on her lap like a tombstone. She didn't want any pie. She watched as her family, one by one, came to get a slice, each of them making a point to tell me how wonderful it looked, how amazing it smelled. Each compliment was a small brick in the new wall between her and the rest of the family, a wall her own actions had built. I didn't feel triumphant or smug. I just felt a quiet, profound sadness for her. In her attempt to haunt me with a ghost, she had only managed to isolate herself. Liam and I ate our pie standing by the window, looking out at the snow gently blanketing the garden. He didn't say anything else, and he didn't need to. Every action, every look, had told me everything I needed to know. The battle was over. Our future together, once a path I felt I had to constantly fight for, now stretched out before us, clear and bright. The rest of the afternoon passed in a gentle, hazy quiet. The conversation in the living room picked back up, but it was softer now, more careful. The loud, boisterous energy from before had been replaced by something more subdued, more authentic. People talked about their year, their children, the new movie someone had seen. They talked about normal things, and the normalcy itself was a healing balm. No one mentioned Chloe. No one mentioned Italy or law school or cashmere scarves. The photo album had been discreetly moved from Judith's lap to a side table, where it lay closed and ignored. Judith herself was a ghost at her own party. She remained on the sofa, nursing a cup of coffee she never drank. She answered direct questions with monosyllables, but offered nothing more. The life of the party had become a silent, brooding presence in the corner. I found I couldn't harbor any resentment toward her. Watching her, small and alone in her perfectly decorated house, I only felt a deep, sorrowful pity. She had been so afraid of losing the memory of a past love story that she had sacrificed the real living one right in front of her. An hour later, as the winter sun began to cast long, blue shadows across the snow, Liam caught my eye from across the room. He gave a slight nod toward the door. It was time to go. Our goodbyes were warmer than our hellos had been. Aunt Mary hugged me tightly, whispering in my ear, "That pie was the best I've ever tasted. You bring it again next year." It was an invitation, a promise that things would be different. Other family members echoed the sentiment, their handshakes firm, their smiles genuine. They were seeing me now, not just as Liam's wife, but as Sophie. The last person we had to face was Judith. She stood as we approached, her face pale and drawn. The awkwardness was a heavy cloak around the three of us. Liam spoke first, his voice gentle. "We're heading out, Mom." "So soon?" she asked, her voice raspy. "It's getting late," he replied simply. There was no accusation in his tone, just a quiet finality. I stepped forward, acting on an impulse I didn't fully understand. "Thank you for having us, Judith. The turkey was wonderful." She looked at me, and for the first time, I think she truly saw me. Her eyes, which had always held a critical glint, were now filled with a complicated mix of emotions I couldn't quite decipher. Regret, confusion, maybe even a sliver of fear. She seemed to want to say something, her mouth opening slightly, but no words came out. She just gave a stiff, jerky nod. The drive home was quiet. The car was warm, the heater humming softly as the landscape, painted in shades of white and gray, slipped past our windows. Liam held my hand on the center console, his thumb stroking my knuckles. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything that had been said and done. "I'm sorry," he finally said, his eyes fixed on the road. "I'm so sorry, Sophie. I should have stopped her years ago. I let it go on for too long. I saw that it hurt you, but I kept telling myself it would get better, that she would come around. That was my failure, not yours." "You didn't fail," I said softly, turning to look at his profile in the dim light of the dashboard. Today you didn't just stop her. You ended it. You showed me. You showed all of them. I love you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are my family. You are my home. There is no before you, not really. Life started when I met you." Tears welled in my eyes again, but this time they were not tears of pain or humiliation. They were tears of pure, unadulterated love. He glanced at me, and a small smile touched his lips. "No more tears in that house, I promise." When we arrived at our own small home, it felt like a sanctuary. It wasn't as grand or as perfectly decorated as Judith's, but it was ours. The wreath on our door was slightly crooked. Our tree was a chaotic mix of ornaments we'd collected over the years, and a half-finished puzzle was spread across the coffee table. It was perfectly imperfect. It was real. Liam lit a fire in the fireplace, and we sat on the floor in front of it, wrapped in a thick blanket, sipping hot chocolate. The storm of the day had passed, leaving behind a clear, peaceful sky. We didn't need to talk anymore. The kiss on my hand had said it all. A silent promise that he would always be my champion, my defender, my forever. In her grand house, surrounded by flawless decorations and the ghosts of Christmases past, Judith was alone. Here, in our beautifully imperfect home, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and a love that had proven its strength, we had everything. The past had finally been put in its place, and our future felt more certain than ever. Sometimes the greatest declarations of love aren't spoken in grand speeches, but in the quietest, most unexpected gestures. It's in a hand held tight under a table, a shared slice of pie, or a gentle kiss that promises protection and devotion. True love doesn't try to live in the past. It builds a beautiful future right here, in the present. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a message of hope.